Can you provide an example of how someone's reputation can hurt them when they're doing a transaction?
Yeah, there's a whole number of them, right? I mean, my book right here, Multifamily Investors Who Dominate, is all about two things. Number one, reputation. Number two, networking with brokers so the brokers fall in love with you to send them listings. And the reputation side, there's a number of things you can do improperly. Probably the biggest one that you hear about the most is retrading. Retrading is where you already have a signed contract with a certain price and terms, and sometime during the contract phase, you try to renegotiate price and terms. You don't ever want to do that unless the issue that came up greatly affects your return, your rate of return. Otherwise, shut up and close. Other things is, when you're on site, walking the asset for the first time, deciding whether or not you want to turn an offer, downplaying the asset, talking bad about it, making poor remarks in front of the property managers and the maintenance personnel. When you turn in an offer and the seller sends you back a red line, when you turn in an offer, you're turning in terms that are completely out of the norm.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, I want the seller to pay for my survey, and I want the seller to pay for my phase one, and I want $200,000 of free repairs if I find them during due diligence. Like, that's totally out of the norm. Don't do stupid stuff like that. Find out what's norm in your market. Other things are, if the seller provides the contract, for instance, if you won the letter of intent, sometimes sellers want to be the ones who provide the contract, not you.
Right.
If they provide you a contract, try not to redline the entire document ad nauseum. Choose the most important points, right? Because what do we all do when we get a first contract at first? The first thing we do is we actually go through all the pages to see how many red lines there are. And intellectually, what the brain says is you don't even read the terms. You're just looking at you look at 20 pages of red lines and you're like, you already hate this human being. So we go back to the top of the PSA and then we start pissed off, right?
Yeah.
So the number of red lines is a big deal. In other words, if the word purchase, it has a small lowercase on the P, don't go through the whole document and make it a capital P to be technically correct. It's stupid because you've now triggered the brain. So there's just lots and lots of little things, but it should be common sense, but it isn't. And people violate all the time. And these things are building your reputation so that when you complete that transaction or don't complete that transaction, that broker, that seller, that attorney, the phase one guy, the inspection people, the property managers, they're all talking about you to their friends who are all in this industry behind your back.
Yeah.
And you do that kind of stuff after just a few years. This is a very, very small world in multifamily, and it spreads quick. There are only 1,000 people that owned every single asset over 10 units in the entire northern half of Florida, right? Only 1,000. And 650 of those own only one asset, which means the other 350 are the ones who control almost all of the inventory.
Yeah.
And those 350 speak to, there's only about 60 multifamily brokers that cover the entire northern half of Florida. So there's basically 410 people that control your entire world. And if you do it wrong, with a touch of a button, I hit send and I warn people about you.
Wow.
That's how it works. I just had an investor that I wasn't even involved in their transaction called me 2 weeks ago to tell me about what his seller did to him after closing. Basically took all of the inventory from maintenance closets and other stuff that should have stayed. But he called me to tell me that, right? How many other people did he call?
Oh yeah.
How many times is he going to tell that story at a party or an event or at a multifamily convention, right?
Yeah.